All right, so it looks like we're live. Thanks everybody for joining us. It's always funny to have a conversation with thin air when when you start one of these hangouts. So anyway, I'm Mendel, and this is the Campfire series with GoDaddy. I'm the head of GoDaddy Evangelism. My job is to bring feedback from the developer, designer, and entrepreneur community back to GoDaddy and let people know about the awesome new things that we're working on. I'm a longtime PHP developer, MySQL optimization enthusiast, as weird and boring as that sounds, and a small business enthusiast. So I'm also a huge fan of hiking, camping, backpacking, stuff like that, any sort of extreme outdoors sport. So what is the Campfire series? Before we get into introducing the guys from Clusterflunk, let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing with this series. So it's 1 hour every couple weeks where we're going to provide a fun environment for a community web professional or somebody in the tech industry to tell their story and provide actionable advice and tips to the community. So you'll see topics about security, best practices, WordPress, Drupal, generally how to kick more ass as a developer or designer or an entrepreneur. So if you're interested in those things, this is definitely for you. This series is going to evolve in some pretty fun ways over the next few months. So get excited to see that evolution, and we'll go ahead and get started. So I want to introduce two really good guys from Clusterflunk. Joe Dallago and AJ Nelson. They are joining us today to tell us about their startup, and I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves.
What's up, guys?
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for the warm intro, Mendel. And it is a little funny just talking to thin air, but I'm sure. I'm AJ. I'm 22. As Mendel mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders with Joe here of Clusterflunk. I grew up in Iowa and a couple other states, but went to high school in Iowa. Then Joe and I also went to the University of Iowa, where we started Clusterflunk. And we're both really young, so we don't have too much of like a detailed resume here, but we're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'm Joe Dallago. I'm 23, born in Santa Cruz, grew up in Iowa, and I'm a co-founder of Clusterflunk as well, and have more of an engineering background, and just really, really enjoying organization building and just web startups in general these days.
Cool. And so just a really quick shout, if you do have a question for these guys during the event, go ahead and post it on the event page on Google Plus or on the Hangout page, and we'll get those questions and answer them as they come in. But the guys are going to tell you a little bit about what Clusterflunk is and how it came to be, and some of the things that they've done to get where they're at, because as the title says, they've raised a little bit of money to move forward with their startup. So take it away, guys. You want to share your screen here?
Cool. Awesome. Yes, we will.
And then
Two Mendels for a second.
then I'll go ahead and broadcast it here. So.
Well, is that good? Can you see that, Mendel?
Yeah, I can see it. So I'll go ahead and open
that
that up to everybody, and hopefully everybody can see that. Okay.
Awesome.
So take it away, guys.
So we're going to start by just giving you guys a quick synopsis of what Clusterflunk actually is. So when Joe and I first kind of went through like the idea phase of Clusterflunk, two big pain points really hit us. The first being, we would go to these big lecture halls our freshman and sophomore year. There's 300, 400, 500 students in the class, and by the end of the semester, we would meet like 3 or 4 of the kids. we were so used to like being in high school, watching all these movies, like being so excited for this epic college experience where you go and meet everyone, and like it just wasn't happening. We started talking and we're like, our potential friends, our potential like wives and husbands, our potential like business partners, co-founders, like could be in that lecture hall, and there was really just no way to talk to them. And then the second big pain point that kind of just like really slapped us in the face is we were studying for an exam together, and we ran into a problem on our study guide. And this is at like midnight, right around midterms time. There's like 1,000 students in the library. So like we didn't know what to do. Like this was such a big roadblock for us. We shot an email to our professors, to our TAs. The exam was the next morning at like 10. We didn't get any responses, of course. We went and took the exam, didn't do so well, and afterwards, to be honest, we were just pissed. We were talking to each other and we're like, okay, this is so ridiculous. There's 400 kids in our class. There's 1,000 kids at the library that night. Like, odds are one of the kids in our class was probably sitting like, in the vicinity of us and probably could have helped us for like a minute, and we would have been fine on that exam. It just seemed like such a like blatantly obvious problem that we couldn't talk to the kids that we went to school with, that we sat next to in lecture hall like 3 or 4 times a week, that from there we decided to kind of start looking at the market.
So we started looking at the market, and we realized that there were a few people trying to solve these core pain points as we wanted to, but they were doing it in a very unique way. They were going to universities, trying to sell to the universities, making the product for universities, and then it would kind of get rained down on the professors, and then eventually it would get rained down on the students. And we saw this model, and we really didn't want anything to do with it. It created an inherent kind of hierarchy within the site, and the students ended up being the afterthought as well when it came to the product. So, we grew up with like consumer-driven products. We grew up with like online communities, and really vibrant communities, and that's what we wanted to create around the university system. So, as opposed to creating a product for the university or professor, we created a product for the students themselves. And that's why our site is more of a community. It's more of a social site than our competitors. So that's why our model is unique in this space.
Yep. And we're actually going to deviate a little bit, and I'm just going to show you guys the site really quickly. Everyone can have some context. I could type. So this is kind of the admin panel. Ignore this, but I will show you like what the University of Iowa looks like. So, for instance, this is the University of Iowa. This is the university wall. So everyone that's attached, so all of these students that are attached to this network land here. This is basically like their home and index page. You can see tons of kids online. On this page, we like to use the analogy that if you threw 15,000 kids into one room, like what would they talk about? It's like anything. They talk about parties, they sell textbooks, they ask for advice, a little bit of everything.
Professor recommendations.
Yep. So from here, you can actually join your classes. So we'll go ahead and join one of these classes that I've already joined. And the class, it's really similar to like a Facebook group for every class or particular university. So students can ask questions, they can get help, they can upload and download any kind of notes, files, lecture, study guides, anything like that. And you can also instant message anyone. You can also do anything anonymously as well. And then we have a very, very basic profile page. So that's the quick pitch of the product. It's taken us a long time to get down to a 3-page app, but it's a big learning point that we're going to talk about here right now. So we're just going to give you a quick overview into kind of how Joe and I met, how we started CF, how we kind of bootstrapped for a while.
So really quickly in review, Clusterflunk is at its core just a simple way for students to talk to each other in their classes. And all of our efforts are just really centered around that.
Yep. So kind of going back, so our story, Joe and I actually grew up riding the same bus in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. We weren't great friends back then. We kind of knew of each other, and the first time that we actually met it's kind of crazy because we were doing, using both of our talents like in the way we are now. And it was Joe helped me make a highlight film for high school football that we sent out to a whole bunch of universities and actually ended up getting me a scholarship. So like we sat down together for weeks on end every day after school, like cut up this film together and like made our first product. And it was pretty cool. And at that point, after spending so much time together, we definitely realized that, like, hey, we definitely have similar like dreams and aspirations, kind of opposite skill sets. So let's like keep in touch and talk about doing something in the future. From there, we went our separate ways, and I went to a school named Truman State, and Joe went to the University of Iowa. And then you can take it from here.
Yeah, so it kind of came down to one semester in particular. AJ was thinking about transferring to the University of Iowa, and we had always been talking about starting something together, and we threw around ideas like real estate or a few other ideas. And we had run like an ad hoc DJing kind of operation before, so we had some experience working together. And it kind of came down to the phone call that AJ alluded to earlier, where we just really felt those pain points going into these large lecture halls, and we decided to create a product around it. So we started that winter. We started brainstorming ideas, got a very basic design together, started building the product, and it took us a year to actually release the product. A lot happened in the year. During that time, we flew out to Palo Alto and met with our very first VC that we had ever talked to. We worked really hard on the product, got a social media presence going, formed the actual business. Just did all of the early stage things you do when you start a business, and we finally got a product out in January, and AJ can tell you about the reception of the product.
Yeah, and probably the biggest thing that we did before we actually launched the product, that really only took us 2 days out of that entire year. It was probably the most important 2 days that we ever did, is we ran a thing called the smoke and mirrors test. And if you guys aren't familiar with what that is, it's basically where you create something fake and you allow users to like sign up for it and prove some kind of validation, for your idea or for your value props of your company or your potential company. So what we did is, like, before the finals week before the semester we launched, we whipped up a landing page that had a sign up form that you could sign up for the classes for your next semester. So what we did is we bought like 5,000 flyers, a couple megaphones. As Joe alluded to earlier, we used to like do a little DJing outfit, so we brought the DJ speakers right to the Pentecrest on the University of Iowa on Monday morning of finals, and just made this like big boom. Handed out all the flyers. We like paid some of our friends to run the megaphones. Just made this like big scene. We actually got a trespassing ticket, which is a whole funny story. But that first day that we created this scene, we had 1,000 kids pre-registered. So we had 1,000 kids sign up that day. So at that point, for Joe and I, it was like, okay, this is instant validation that this is a real problem. That 1,000 kids could sign up in one day. So this is enough for us to at least take a semester off and dedicate like our full time to this. So from there,
the dropping out thing was included in the title, so we should probably at least mention it. And it was really funny because we always say that like that decision, everyone kind of weights that decision, but at the time it was like very easy to make because we had validated something that we wanted to spend time on, and this was after 5 months of trying to do the business and school at the same time, so we were like really beaten down. it was just too hard to do, both at the same time. So the actual decision to drop out was very, very easy to make, and it wasn't really even a conversation we had. It was kind of just like almost assumed. So, yeah, that's kind of like the backstory behind that. Our parents weren't too pleased to begin with, but we gave it a couple weeks and they got over it.
Yeah, some advice. We did it without telling our parents first, and that was kind of the best way to go about it. So from there, we had 1,000 kids pre-register. The first week we're actually live in January of 2013, only at the University of Iowa. We had another 1,000 kids sign up. Like, everything was just going too well. We were like, okay, too easy. Like, we're going to be the next Facebook for sure. This is when we're like 19. And, another week went by, traffic slowly started declining. Then another week went by and traffic just completely stopped. We were just a little baffled at like how everyone on the site just stopped using it. We had this hype, we had all these signups, and then our actual engagement just completely stopped. And it really didn't hit us until we got this piece of feedback. We have like a basic feedback form on our site, and it was signed by Seymour Butts. So whoever signed it, Seymour Butts saved our company. And basically what they said is that your company is bad, that you guys should feel bad for creating such a bad user experience. You guys are actually hurting my grades. You guys are actually hurting my chances of, meeting the students in my class. And you two need to go back to the drawing boards and relaunch this thing.
And so this is kind of an important concept to think about, and we created a precedent throughout the company, after that piece of feedback that, we were going to listen to the negative feedback. We were going to confront the harsh realities of what we're doing and really value negative feedback. It's just as easy to like look at a piece of feedback like that and brush it off and say, oh, they don't know what they're talking about, as it is to really value it and make decisions based off of it. So it's definitely, iterating on a product isn't easy, and we had to face the harsh realities and overcome them to be able to improve the product at all. So following that piece of feedback, we took a month, completely redesigned the product, made it a lot simpler. We had to do this, we actually had to get all of the courses at the University of Iowa and like pre-populate all of the groups, so that way it made people's lives easier when signing up. We had to do a lot of user experience stuff, but we released it about a month later after launching and kind of relaunched, and the reception was a lot better. People were able to use the product. People were able to actually use it for its purpose. So that was just a really good learning experience for us, and we did more in that month, with the product than we did in the previous 9 months. So it was just a really big learning experience about what it actually means to be lean and to kind of iterate quickly on a product and get it out there quickly.
Yeah, and really create a product that people want, as opposed to like what you think you want or what the team wants. So from there, we ended up getting about 10% of the university on board by that first semester, and that's what led to our first kind of pre-seed raise. We raised $100,000 that July, so that summer, from some prominent Iowa people. Maybe the only ones that you guys had ever heard of is Ben Milne, the CEO of Dallalo. So those 4 seed investors, are definitely what helped us get to the next level. The semester after that, we really picked up traction, and long story short, we ended up with like 50% of the University of Iowa using the product pretty actively. And from there, we went into the following semester, and we thought our recipe was well enough to launch at another 15 schools. So that's what we did. So we're currently at 15 schools. These 15 schools are definitely matching the University of Iowa's growth in semesters 1 and 2. And after we did that initial, kind of launch to these 15 schools, we caught the eye of Lightbank, and Lightbank then invested $1 million in us just recently, a couple months ago. And that's kind of the quick pitch of our story. You know, we're definitely learning a lot, learning on how to build a team. But you know, from here, we just kind of pulled out some specifics throughout, like the biggest things that we've learned, and we just want to continue talking about them while we have the floor here. So, how to raise money? You know, this is this was also mentioned in the title, so we wanted to make sure that we went over it. And you know, how people teach you to raise money is really a funny thing. You know, there's tons of literature on it. You know, everyone focuses on it. But it's funny when you talk to the really successful people and the really successful companies, that's not what they focus on. You know, they could care less, you know, who raised what or how much they raised at what valuation. You know, those things really don't matter. You know, like, to be completely honest, how our mindset has been on raising the entire time has been this. You know, like, we go out, we build a really kick-ass product. You know, from that product, we get some engagement. You know, we talk to those users, we learn, you know, how to get them more addicted, how to get them more engaged, and from that, you know, they start talking about our product. You know, and once they start talking about our product, you know, then we pick up press. You know, then from that press, investors, you know, see that, and the right people kind of come to you. So the big learning points from this is that for both of our raises, you know, the 4 people came to us in our seed round. You know, Ben, Josh, Brad, and Anthony. Like, they initially messaged us. You know, Lightbank, you know, how we got this $1 million investment is they cold emailed us. So, like, the really big learning point here is that raising money isn't about building a business plan and getting connections and making the perfect pitch. You know, if you're doing the correct things and really getting, like, an engaged product, the right people will come to you, I promise. It's you know, it's a crazy revelation. No one, like, actually talks about this. But when you go talk to the, like, mega companies, this is how they started. You know, they focused and put all of their time into the product, all of their time into their users, and the rest will work itself out.
Definitely.
And
hey guys,
yeah.
can you so I'm cool on this slide, but as you're going on to the next one, if you're talking on it for a little bit, I bet the audience would love to see your faces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No problem.
Oh no! Whoa, that's scary.
That's a no-no. Okay.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Okay.
Cool. So cool. You can't see it, but the next slide is how to build the right product. And you're going to hear some parallels here with what AJ just said, because we tend to be very product-centric people in general. So, like, a lot of the way we want to build this business is centered around the product. But there are 2 big takeaways I like to talk about in the frame of, like, how to build the right product. So the first thing is that throughout our history, the biggest time sinks we've ever had are building the wrong products. So we would say, like, the biggest way to save time and gain momentum is to really focus on making sure that what you're building is the right product. And how do you know what the right product is? Well, it's easy. Your users will tell you. You just have to get it out to them quick enough where they can start giving you feedback and iterate quickly enough where they can, you know, move with you and continue to give you feedback. So the first big thing is just kind of move quickly and change things quickly. Just kind of the main tenet of a lean startup. So the way we think is, you know, if we were to start a business today, and we had an idea that we thought was worth experimenting with, we would try to get out something. And in the web, it's a lot easier than other industries, but we try to get something out, a product out within like a month or 2, and immediately get people using it. And you know, we might have a ton of features in mind for this product, but we might only release like one major one that allows them to do the bare minimum.
Hey, so I'm curious, how does that impact the user experience, right? So so you're essentially saying to somebody, here, check this out, use this, invest your time in it, and get excited about it, and maybe in 1 or 2 months it might not be around. I mean, a lot of startups don't experience the same growth and investment and things like that that you have. So, you know, how does that work? How do you deal with expectations?
I guess the best answer for that is we try not to go into anything anymore with. We used to release a feature and have huge expectations for its potential, but we try to we try not to have whole lot of expectations anymore when we release things. We kind of treat everything more of as an experiment, and put. And that does a couple interesting things. That means that when you're building it out, you're less likely to like spend a ton of time on that one thing, as opposed to just getting out there and see how people react to it. Because the really good moves for your company will be very apparent. We've found. To put it in the context of the web, you release a feature, and if it's a feature people that's worthy of being included in the site, people will use it, and they'll even, and a lot of times if it's an underbuilt feature, like if it's an underdeveloped feature that like allows them to do something that they weren't able to do before, but it's not the user experience isn't clean yet, they'll try to like hack ways to use it anyway. Like we've seen users who put timestamps into chat because they're not they're not there yet. So users will find a way to use your product if it's doing something, if it's facilitating some kind of communication that they've never had before. So yeah, does that kind of answer your question? To be like, I guess the tenet is to be a little bit expectationless. Your favorite feature could completely fail, and the feature that you hate the most could really succeed and be useful. So your expectations don't mean a whole lot. It's more of like its reception to your customer base and your audience.
So you throw it out there, you see what happens, and you let people react to it, and then you just look at those reactions and make sure that that you're acting on the popular reactions and the way that people are interested in using either the feature or the actual product.
Exactly, and to kind of like even step back further, keeping things so simple and like making those simple core parts working like as fast as possible and as well as possible. As Joe said, like if people really want a product, like people tell you they want product or features all the time, right? And 37 Signals, they have a great outlook on this, that they don't take notes ever like on people's feature requests. Like their belief is that if people want a feature bad enough, like they will tell you every day, and it'll finally like click with you one time that like, damn, I've heard that 100 times. Like we need to build that out. So it's things like that, and like a good example is like in our instant messaging system. We made it like so bare like bones at first that people were like literally putting in like 12.29. Hey guys, what's up? So like people will show you that these features are needed.
Wow, so it sounds like a really responsive user base.
Yeah, community. We're lucky with communities because people will work with you a lot of the time and use your product if it's doing something they haven't been able to do before.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's kind of just the first major tenet. Like make sure what you're building is like the right product, or at least a specific direction for that product. And if it's not, then like can it and go in a different direction. Don't become too attached to any one direction your company goes. And that's the first major tenet. And just that's a really long way of saying like what a lean startup is supposed to be by definition. And the second major point is once you have at least a foundation that people like, then it's all about creating slow upward momentum after that. So you need to frame every day for the team and for the team to be able to get a little bit done every day, and that over time just builds up into a larger product. So that means streamlining your processes so a little bit can happen every day. And so the focus isn't on like these major pushes. The focus is on framing the workday so that people can accomplish things every single day, and that'll add up. And that leads to people being saner because they're not having to cram a bunch of stuff in to meet deadlines, and it leads to improvements on the product being made day after day, week after week. It's kind of just this concept of putting one foot in front of the other. We always like to say that, like, I always like to make hand gestures for this, if you can kind of see this. But like, a lot of companies have development cycles like this where it's like, okay, get a lot of stuff done, okay, everyone crashes. Like, get a lot of stuff done, everyone crashes. And really, a good company, like the big companies, I feel like, are like slow, and then they slowly gain momentum. So if you can really focus on people accomplishing just a little bit every single day with no gaps in between, then it'll lead to a more like long-term sustainable company that is saner and can maintain focus for longer.
Yeah, and that's not only on the product. That's in every aspect of our company, at least. If we've learned anything, it's that it's not like 2 or 3 big things are going to make your company awesome. It's like day after day. It's going to be that grind, and it's going to be exponential growth. And you have to keep making like little improvements, little optimizations, every single day. Like those will eventually lead up to, like, once you hit that growth, like it'll be like a hockey stick. There's a great, I think it's out of the book, Traction. I think Jim Collins wrote the book, and he says that startups are really weird in the fact that they move 4 times as fast as corporate companies. So like if you broke that down, like our days actually equal weeks, like in a corporate company, and like our weeks actually model months in a corporate company, and like in our quarters, actually model years. So it's all about like getting stuff done every single day. Not talking about things, like really getting like Joe said, foot in front of other foot, step in front of other step.
And
so it's interesting that you guys mentioned that concept. When I first started working at GoDaddy, one of the things that I was told was that if you have an idea, that you just run with it, right? And it was kind of a new concept for me. But the idea was, enough talking about it, just go experiment, figure it out, and see if it makes sense, right? And just do it, be agile about it, and try it out. So that definitely resonates with me a lot. But it was something that took a little while to get in the habit of doing. Actually taking ownership of features and thoughts and ideas, and just quickly prototyping and getting it out there and trying it.
Yeah, definitely. And like, it's a common thing for people to do, right? To get caught up in like just idea phase, and the reality is that like, you don't know how many problems you have until you actually start. So the sooner you start, the sooner you can actually start solving real problems.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of these tenets that we're talking about, like a lot of these ways to like build companies and to think, are really good to talk about, right? But they're really, really hard to put into practice. Just like we've really, like, as we've raised this last round, like taken a look at ourselves and been like, okay, we say we're data driven, like let's actually be data driven. It's a lot. Everyone says, for instance, a good example, they're data driven, right? But like, does everyone actually like take a week extra to put in like all the mixed panel tracking events, and set up all the funnels so that when you do release something, you can track it properly? And so a lot of these things are a lot harder to do in practice than to kind of like preach about.
and we're still learning, you know,
Yeah.
how to do it every day. You know,
Very
it's
true.
a long process, and no one's ever really an expert at it. And
True, and we're going to move on to our last slide. We'll just like show it really quick, maybe, and then we'll get back to cut back to us. So the last slide is this equation, and what it says is G equals C plus OP minus MM, and what that means is growth equals content plus other people minus marketing messages. You know, so that's an equation that we based like our entire company off of, like product-wise, marketing-wise, raising money-wise. Just let's kind of like walk through that, right? You know, so what it says is that, so content is pretty, you know, self-explanatory. It's like actual people's content. You know, you plus other people, so you know that content and other people, so people using your product basically, and minus marketing messages. So like the good analogy here to think is that, you know, if you get served a Facebook ad for a company, for an app to download, right? You're probably going to like scroll over it. You might take a glance at it. But like if one of your best friends tells you that same app kicks ass, right? And it totally gave them a ton of value, you're going to go download it. Right? So like taking other people's word and other people's like experience on your product and getting them to talk about your product is so much more important than, you know, Clusterflunk tweeting like, hey, we have feature A, B, C, D, and E, and we're so awesome, and, you know, we raised money. You know, like, those things don't matter, but when you get other people to talk about you, like, that's what matters. Like, that's when you start growing, really. You know, it's just a big law of social validation, right? Like, getting it, you know, so kind of like, to take a step back, you know, starting off, like, getting, like, 10 people to love your product, right? And getting those 10 people to talk about it on social media. You know, like taking a screenshot of those 10 people talking about it, and then that's how you market. You know, that's like what you're tweeting. That's what you're using on Facebook. That's what you're using on your landing page. Like, that's how you're talking to people. You know, and that like grows exponentially. You know, that's like how you become viral. And it's just the stance that we've taken, like on marketing, on the product, like as we said, on raising money. You know, on raising money, we use this same equation. You know, we've had all of our investors like come to us. You know, so like if you do the correct things, you know, if you get people talking about your products and you don't like cram marketing messages down their throat, you know, good things will happen. And that was kind of like the end of all the points we wanted to talk about. So let's hear some questions about anything.
Which just one final note, like on that, which is a lot harder than telling your people your product's awesome, right? It's really easy to like talk to someone for, you know, forever about how awesome your product is and what you're trying to do, and like and why you're excited about it. But in the end, that really doesn't matter. You know, you need other people who understand the vision, and more importantly, who are gaining something, you know, from your company. Like it seems so obvious, but a lot of people get caught up with the company itself that they end up forgetting about, you know, the very people they're trying to help, you know. So that's where your mind should always be, like, how can you help your customers more, and build the business in a way that it's valuing as many people as possible.
Yeah, and for that equation, we actually have anyone that does like any talking about our product, you know, any like quote unquote marketing people on our team, actually have a big spreadsheet of that equation, and they like for every post they do, they fill out like how they're hitting other people, how they're hitting content, and like how they're not hitting marketing messages. If that makes sense. So we definitely like turned it into a practice.
That's cool. And it's a cool story. So I want to talk about the two of you for a second. You personally, right? Yeah. And you know, sometimes when I wake up and I need to make a flight, there's some strange things that are obstacles in my life that I never thought I would have as obstacles in my life when I wasn't flying around for work, right? Some just, you know, personal things. the strap on my bag tends to wear out more than it used to traveling once a year, right? And so those are unique problems because I travel a lot, right? And that's a bad example, but the point is, you guys came from going to school and being in one of the most, I mean, a lot of students complain about, oh, school, classes, all that stuff, but in reality, it's one of the best kind of easiest places to be in, especially if you don't have a job or something like that, and you're just learning full time. Like that's a pretty awesome situation, right? And then all of a sudden, you're doing the startup. So the question is, what is one of the hardest parts personally that you've experienced of starting a new venture? Like, has there been a personal struggle? Has there been something you've just been like, man, I didn't think it was going to end up that way, but it did, and it surprised me.
Yeah, there's never been like one or two of those. There's like tens or hundreds of them. There's big problems that we face, like personally and as a company every day. It's more so about like creating a system on how to go about those problems day to day, and like how to solve them efficiently. Like personally and through a company. But it's not easy.
What's an example? I mean, what's something that not to put you on the spot too much, but
Yeah.
I think some people that are watching that are interested in starting their own venture or on that track, might think that some of their experiences are a little strange. Having some struggles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking mostly personally though.
Yeah. I think that's more interesting, right?
Yeah. So like running a startup is like working out. It's not if you're doing it right, it's not easy. It's painful. My favorite quote is Elon Musk. Musk quote. Running a company is like chewing glass and staring into the abyss. The chewing glass.
That's pretty intense.
Is if you're chewing glass, it's not pleasant. It's painful. And you're constantly having to deal with like the day-to-day struggles. The staring into the abyss part is just kind of the uncertainty of like, is this company viable? Is this idea valuable? Like, are we going to be able to reach enough people? Like, just the big overlying struggles of a company, right? And you're looking at them with complete uncertainty if it's possible or not, but you're going to put all of your effort into overcoming them. So exactly like AJ said, if you're doing a startup right, it shouldn't be comfortable. Every day you need to be facing the harshest realities of your company and trying to overcome them. And it's all about creating this system. This Traction calls it an entrepreneurial operating system, but this like system of like dealing with those struggles and being able to combat those struggles and doing it in a way that keeps you emotionally sane and kind of collected. Once we feel like one of the biggest skills you can develop as a person is just kind of like general problem solving skills. You encounter problems in your personal life and your work life all the time. Coming up with a set of good mental models to like kind of tackle everything is really, really important, and that's how we feel that's how good people become great people, is by following a few simple mental models that they have for themselves. And
I don't know if you guys are. I thought you guys were doing a really good job, and now I don't know if you guys are struggling enough, because you seem pretty calm and collected today.
Yeah. So I have two good points to come out of this as well. So I just read a really great book that hits on this, and it's Ben Horowitz's new book. It's called The Hard Things About Hard Things. And basically what he says is that like any great CEO or CTO or leader, like they're not great at doing awesome things, right? What they're really great at is like when shit comes, like the shitstorm comes, they know how to pick like the stuff that's less bad than the stuff that's real bad. So it's like getting yourself in this mindset of survival, right? Like if I keep surviving for the next 2 years, for the next 4 years, like picking the less bad like routes than the more bad routes, like eventually we'll hit our like our golden ticket. Like our growth will happen. So it's like this day-to-day grind. It's not easy. It's not fun. Like I can think of a good like particularly situation where this happened to Joe and I personally. So in the beginning days of Clusterflunk, we were students. We needed money for like web hosting, and we needed money to like someone could design the product so we could release it, without it looking like really, really bad. So like what we did is we had a mentor, and we thought for sure, we made up this plan that we needed $15,000 from it, right? And he's like, yeah, like I'll take a meeting, like I'll listen to you. It's like we're so nervous. We made this entire pitch to him, and he just looked at us and he's like, right, like guys, I'm really successful. He's like, I'm not going to give you $15,000. He's like, no successful person is going to give you $15,000. He's like, you need to go out, and he's like, you need to find a way how to do it. And we're like, well, what do you mean? He's like, I don't know. He's like, this is the stuff that you have to figure out. He's like, no one's going to tell you this. He's like, go figure it out. So Joe and I got off that call, and we're like, let's go get student loans. So like personally, we went and pulled out student loans and put them towards CFs. And like, it wasn't fun. Like we were really naive, but it was one of the best things that we ever did. So it's just about like picking as I said, picking the less bad choice.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. I especially liked the comment about eating glass.
Yeah.
It is really tough, and doing it for your first time is even tougher. And I know that the University of Iowa also has good opportunity to learn from a lot of people and lots of resources and things like that. But I don't think anything can prepare you for for approaching entrepreneurship. So we have a question, and if people listening have questions, post them on the event page. But Kathy Larkin from Web Savvy PR asked, how many college campuses are using Clusterflunk? I guess her nephew is a college freshman this fall. So curious how many and maybe kind of what geography they're in.
Yeah, so we're currently live at 15 schools. So that's 1-5. We're basically treating it still as a beta until we really like crank through some other problems in the product, really get some engagement turned up, and then we'll like really make our national scale. And the geography of these schools is completely everywhere. Like we're live at some of our biggest schools are the University of Iowa, Iowa State, Auburn University, University of Florida, University of Wisconsin, Ohio State, Ohio University. So they're a little bit of everywhere, to be completely honest.
Cool. And is there a place that people can go to check out the list of schools? Can they just go to clusterflunk.com?
Yep, just go to clusterflunk.com /signup, and it's just like in the sign up bar. You can search for the schools.
Okay, cool. So we have about 10 minutes left, and I wanted to get in some questions about where Clusterflunk is going and kind of predictions on the space as a whole. We're obviously all aware that there's this social network called Facebook. There are other social networks, possibly with the potential of disrupting the space as well. So I'm curious what's coming soon for Clusterflunk. Any features that you can tease a little bit? That would be cool. And then talk about your predictions as a whole for for the space, and how this is going to change. The space is going to change over the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. So as a teaser, we just submitted our iOS app to the App Store last Wednesday. So we're waiting the 5 to 10 days for Apple to submit it. So that will be ready to go this week or next week or this weekend. We're kind of just like in a hold waiting for Apple. As far as like other features, we're not really big into like planning features right now. It's more so just like things like we're like always working on a campus rep program right now. Like we're just trying to solve these big problems.
We have some things planned, but we're more or less like we've got a good like core foundation of things done, and we just want to get better at what we already do. We do things to a certain level now, and we think we have a lot to still prove, and we just want to get better at what we're doing now.
All right, so let's have a real personal conversation in front of a bunch of internet viewers.
Okay.
What are your dreams for where Clusterflunk will go, and for where you guys will go? When a lot of kids are young, they think about being a fireman or a firewoman, or or being a lawyer or a doctor, right? And all of a sudden, you guys are running a company that has a racy title that throws crazy launch parties and helps kids do better in school and collaborate with each other, right? Probably something you never thought you'd be doing. So what are your hopes and dreams for the company and for where you'll be at?
Do you want to go first, and then
we so like from day one, it's really cool. Like this is just a side note. We created like visions in a company handbook like before we even launched a product. And like we still use both of those today. Like for every person that joins the team, like we walk them through it. And it's really cool that like from day one we still have like the same exact vision and like goals and mottos and things like that. And it's simply number one is to get kids better grades. That was a problem for us when we were in school, a big problem of why we started CF. And number two is to give kids friends. Give kids an opportunity to meet the other kids in their lecture hall. And so, this has been our like 1 and 2 all the time. Just we wanted to figure out like some way to quantify this, right? So what we did is we just put out a survey to our beta school, the University of Iowa, at the end of last semester, and asked them those 2 questions. And 65% of the kids said that they got better grades solely because of Clusterflunk, and then 38% of them said they made a friend in real life because of Clusterflunk. So like.
Oh, that's a really big deal.
Yeah, like those 2 things give us goosebumps. Like, if we can get kids to learn, more efficiently and be, more intelligent and make friends in the process, like we're completely changing the world in our eyes. Like giving a kid a friend, like when a kid's in need and giving him a friend or giving him, someone to study or getting him an A is like, that's like life changing, right? Like who knows the implications of that. So like as long as we can keep doing this at a much bigger scale, I can speak for the both of us, like we'll both completely be content.
Definitely.
That's awesome. And by the way, there's a fan, looks like Colton is from Auburn University, and saying Clusterflunk is such a solid company, glad to see where it's going. So
thanks.
So that's cool. And then Kathy Larkin, what's up?
The one addition I was going to make to what AJ said was we just to kind of give a picture of like the long-term vision. We really just see Clusterflunk as like in the future, what we want it to be is just a big, vibrant community of people centered around universities. Like think like a Reddit or like a Twitter or Facebook around just solely around universities. So that's really what we see as kind of the long-term vision, and that's what we're working towards.
Yeah, and the great thing is there's universities everywhere, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember talking with you guys about this a while back, a couple of years ago, and when I went to the site, it was really it was kind of the way Facebook was when it first started, right? It was very very simple, and when you got it, so very simple, and it was easy to understand the appeal. But it's cool to see how far things have come. Kathy Larkin asked, what is one of the biggest things you learned that was unexpected?
As of, I don't know if this is the biggest, but it's definitely one of the bigger learning points for us as of recently. Is, so like for a long time, it's just been Joe and I running the company. We've had people helping us out, part-timers, and some like great people obviously helping us out. But for a long time, it was just me and him running the company. So like we went and raised money. We raised money to hire people to get a great team, right? And like not once did our investors, our mentors, anyone ever tell us how hard it is to like build a team and to like quote unquote like manage people and like do knowledge transfer. It's like that. I think that's like as of recently has been the biggest learning curve for us is like setting things in place so other people are happy and other people can do their jobs at the highest potential, and like thinking of others rather than just Joe and I, and like finding people that are better than us in certain aspects.
Yeah, if we said, if we were to start a new company today, like the very first thing we would do is find people to help. Like we spent so much time, just AJ and I, working alone, and we just feel like we could have accelerated things so much more if we would have found a few more people to help. So it's definitely there's a great book called Good to Great, and they have like 5 major points in building a company, and the second one is think about who before the what. So we definitely completely agree with that, and like AJ said, like as of recently, and probably like for the entire company, the biggest thing we've learned is just how important getting the right people is in this process, and to focus on that first before you start trying to build things out.
Yeah, it was a really crazy kind of surreal moment when Joe and I had a conversation a while back, and we were like, we've completely maxed out both of our skill sets. Like Joe and I, like we cannot take this company any further without other talented people. Like it was
like to the point where we could work on something for another 6 months and it wouldn't get any better because like we just kind of rechurn the same ideas and the same experiments all the time. So it really takes a lot of people, or I won't say a lot of people, but like good quality people, a team of good quality people to really take a product the full distance, Yeah,
and I don't think you're alone there. All of the tech industry, software as a service industry, all that stuff in the U.S. has a big difficult time with getting talented people. And I was at an event last night, and there were about 3 or 4 companies that were scouting for talent in any place they could find it, because it's so hard to come by. And so that's I'm sure that it's not an easy process, but I'm guessing that the people you have with you now are pretty talented because you guys are moving. So we're gonna close things down here. Before we do, first of all, I want to thank you guys for coming on. Obviously, running a startup and dealing with this full tilt lifestyle and grinding it out, taking an hour out, it can be difficult. So I appreciate you taking the time. And I wanted to ask you guys if somebody wants to get in touch with you as far as like Twitter or something like that. What are your Twitter handles so that people can tweet a question or two if they have one?
Yeah. So my Twitter handle is @_ here. I'll put it in chat, and then you can broadcast it. It's a little than just my name, but _JAYD3E JD.
Okay.
So, and then AJ will put his in there.
And then mine is just Adam_JON_Nelson. So it's my full name.
All right, guys, we got to work on those Twitter handles at some point, but
you can just search our names too, and Twitter's smart enough to find them.
And then, of course, you can tweet Clusterflunk as well, right?
They'll redirect you to us as well.
And then, so mine's at If You Will It, and obviously if you have a question for the Clusterflunk guys and you can't remember any of that, you can always tweet at GoDaddy, and we'll make sure it finds its way to them.
Cool.
So yeah, pretty awesome. You guys are in your office at Lightbank in Chicago, and it's looking pretty cool. One of these days, hopefully, I'll get the chance to swing by and check it out in real life. But I really appreciate you guys taking the time. Next week, or sorry, not next week. In about 3 weeks, on the 30th, we're gonna have Josh McNary, and he's gonna be talking about some WordPress security stuff. And so if you enjoyed watching this, if you know anybody that's into WordPress or into security or anything like that, and you're watching, feel free to check that out. I think we'll post a link to that next Hangout in this Hangout if and when we get that set up. I'm not sure if it's set up yet, so it's still a few weeks out. Also, I will be putting this particular video on YouTube, so it can be rewatched. You can share it, and also I'll be hopefully taking the video, downloading it, and throwing it into podcast form. So there will be a lot of ways for you to consume this. Again, we're just getting started with this series, and I appreciate you guys getting through it with us and dealing with some time changes and things like that. But it was really a pleasure to have you guys on, and looking forward to seeing new stuff.
Thanks for having us too, and we just really appreciate any time we get to have the floor and talk about what we're doing, because we're really excited about it. So thanks for inviting us. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you GoDaddy community. Hopefully you guys all took something from it, and feel free to reach out to us whenever. The best people that helped us out gave us a lot of their personal time, so we like to do the same thing to anyone that needs help.
Cool. And if you guys liked what you saw, go ahead and give a shout out to Clusterflunk on Twitter, just because they're great. Anyway, I guess we'll sign off now. So take care, everybody, and thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye.